It is unfortunate that in today's society, spousal abuse is still a problem that reoccurs in homes across the world. The definition of spousal abuse is when one partner attempts to dominate the other and exceed power in doing so. This may lead to violence inflicted on one of the partners. Many types of abuse may occur. Some include emotional, verbal, psychological, financial, physical, and sexual abuse. This type of abuse may occur in any romantic related relationship, including husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, common law marriages, or any same sex relationship. In more recent years, spousal abuse has become more and more frowned upon. In most recent societies these days, such an act can be punishable with up to 10 years in federal state prison. This may occur in countries like Canada, the US, and the UK. Fortunately, we have been brought into a country where abuse towards a partner is no longer tolerable. Although this problem is one of the grand scheme of things being fixed, some countries, such as Afghanistan, still experience this type of act. To this day, women in Afghanistan experience discrimination not only in society but in their own homes, which is inflicted on them with their chosen life partner. In recent cases in Afghanistan, women have been experiencing some extreme spousal abuse. One woman was cut by her husband on the face and on the chest for not obliging to bringing him $5,000 to feed his drug habits. Due to the corrupt society, many of these women with the same stories do not possess an identification card, which is one of the requirements for getting a divorce in the court of law. These women need to get one of these cards by getting permission from either their husband or father. This law has become undoubtedly problematic as the majority of these women suffer from physical and domestic abuse from their partner, and they will rarely provide them with permission to get a divorce. Afghan women feel like the abuse they receive is justified and therefore okay if it is followed by the following reasons: refusing sex, arguing, burning food, and going out without permission. My thesis states the following. In the novel 1000 Splendid Suns, written by Khalid Hosseini, the topic and theme of the spousal abuse is explored and demonstrated through the characters Layla and Miriam. Throughout the book, their husband Rashid exemplifies all acts of abuse, including physical, sexual, verbal, and emotional abuse, with any justification or punishment. The extremity of abuse that is portrayed on Miriam and Lila throughout the book is both diabolical and greatly unjustified. The first thing that comes to mind when thinking of physical abuse is the act of kicking, hitting, punching, or inflicting any sort of pain on the victim. According to the people from the Society of Physical Research Abuse, any peer who inflicts pain on their partner can be considered physical abuse. Some of the most common acts of physical abuse can range from scratching, biting, punching, shoving, choking, reckless driving, and so on. Some examples of physical abuse in the novel are when Layla experiences physical harm by her husband. She describes the pain as if a car had hit her at full speed into the tender place between her lower tip of her breastbone and belly button. Her hair ripped from Layla's scalp, her eyes watered with pain. Unfortunately, the physical abuse did not stop there, and it only continued as time went on, when her husband found that both of his wives attempted to escape. Sexual abuse is one of the most frowned upon forms of abuse that can be demonstrated in any form of romantic relationship. It can range from the unwanted touching from another person to the most extreme form of sexual abuse, which is rape. According to the Edmonton Police Service, sexual assault can be defined as an assault of a sexual nature that violates the sexual integrity of the victim. Some examples of sexual abuse in the novel is when Miriam is constantly forced to perform sexual acts. She says, "I can't," on page 76, defying her husband, who then forces her to do it anyways. Later in the novel, Lila is forced to conceive another child with her husband, even though she is unwillingly against performing any sexual act with him. Even though both women defy and disagree with the complying orders of her husband, he does what he pleases and sexually abuses them as he pleases. Verbal and emotional abuse is much more common and does go unnoticed, as it is considered less extreme than psychological and physical forms of abuse. According to Psychology Today, the abuser commonly is unaware of the emotional abuse they are inflicting on the other person. In the same way that physical abuse is used to attempt control of the other person, emotional abuse also acquires the same intention, except it does not inflict any physical pain on the receiver's side. Some examples of this in the novel is when Marion and Lila's husband intentionally uses the form of emotional abuse to bring them down and feel worthless. This is demonstrated multiple times. In the novel, when he says, "Now you know what your rice tastes like. Now you know what you've given me in this marriage. Bad food and nothing else." This form of abuse is used to intentionally tear Marion down and make her feel less of herself. Even though this is one of the less extreme cases of their husband performing spousal abuse, it is still considered toxic and disrespectful, especially towards his wife. In conclusion, sadly, all of these examples, including ones that were discussed in the novel, are ongoing issues for women that face these on a daily basis. Unfortunately, due to the corrupt society and leaders of Afghanistan, there is little to no progression for this issue and is not getting any better. The author makes all readers realize the effects of physical, sexual, verbal, and emotional abuse have on women in society. And surveys have shown how women have decided to feel less of themselves and less worthy because of these actions. This novel can be an example of what we do not need in this world, and hopefully will open up the eyes of people to further get this issue taken care of and end this horrible reoccurring subject matter in Afghanistan. 3 questions that were formed during the making of this assignment are the following. 1. Out of all forms of abuse that were touched upon, which of the following, including physical, emotional, sexual, verbal, are most commonly experienced in Canada? 2. What recent actions have Canadians taken to help stop this form of spousal abuse in Afghanistan? 3. What age do women in Afghanistan begin to experience this sexual abuse?